and welcome back to High on History. So, we have a couple announcements before we begin. We are taking a short hiatus.
Spring break.
Yep, spring break, so to say, except we're not really celebrating. No Cancun trips.
No.
I've got finals to take care of, and we just need a little bit of a hiatus so I can take care of a few things.
Mostly schooling.
Mostly schooling.
But also, we are not working on this project in that time.
Yep.
So we have super amazing news on that front, too.
We are going to work on launching our rebrand. As we've announced in some of the previous videos, we are rebranding to Yesterday's Tea. We are working on setting up a GoFundMe to help us raise money for the lawyer to get our trademark and copyrighted for our material, as well as possibly a little bit of extra funding towards our very first tea set for Yesterday's Tea.
And probably some slightly better
recording equipment.
When we come back, the studio will actually also be moved. It will no longer be on my bed. It will be out in
my room.
Her room. And so we hope to have that done by the time we come back, or at least part of the way done.
Yeah.
Let's see, we're gonna set up a new email. Everything's gonna be brand new. We're gonna just do a complete rebrand. That's when we will set up the Patreon, and we'll probably. I was gonna suggest. I think we've talked about our Shopify account. We'll sell some merch. We'll get some of that stuff made.
You'll also be able to order crochet pieces from me. I will be putting those up on the marketplace as well for us.
And that is when the sound checks will also be available for our Patreon subscribers.
Yeah.
And we've been working really hard on creating the formats for that.
Yeah.
And so hopefully when we come back, all of that will, or at least most of that will already be in place. We're going to use this 2 months largely to focus on schoolwork.
Yeah.
This is the most important thing.
Yeah.
But also we are going to continue to work on this and just making this show better and better.
Yeah.
Because it's, it started as just this fun sort of hobby thing, and it's become
a passion project.
It's become a passion project. And so, I mean, in these days, who doesn't need a little bit of a side hustle?
Right. So, yeah, we'll come back in a couple of weeks, ready to go.
When were you thinking of coming back? Did you have a date?
No specific date. Term ends on April 30th, but I was hoping to probably, April 30th term ends. I was hoping to be back by, May 31st-ish.
Okay.
To give me enough time to end term and begin my next term.
So this will throw us off the Bastille Day.
Yes, unfortunately, it will throw us off the timeline that we had initially wanted to try to line up with.
Shoot.
Yeah,
but
all of our research had initially lined up with historic events, and that was beautiful watching the alignment of our research initially kick off. To the day we were looking stuff up on the event.
We were looking up the stuff about the storming of the Bastille on Bastille Day. We didn't even know it.
Didn't even notice it, and then we're like, what
and
day
then we were
is
like, wait, what? That was so much fun. That was so much fun. We were going to try to line the episodes up that way, too.
And we had actually calculated it out, and it was going to line up.
It was going to line up.
But I fell behind, and now it's time to really catch up. And so...
And you know what? This is wonderful, and we do need to do the rebrand, so we're just going to take a break. We're going to do that, refocus, and then we'll be back better than ever.
We did not mention what we're going to do with our old material from High on History. Now, originally, we had wanted to scrap Season 1 altogether and just completely delete it. Y'all spoke to us personally and reached out to us on so many different platforms.
We got so much
feedback
pushback on that.
We are going to keep Season 1
Even though so much of it is so cringe.
So cringe. We love that you guys love it. So we're going to leave
Thank you.
So what we plan on doing with Season 1 and Season 2, well, Season 2.1, because we're stopping halfway through Season 2.
Yeah. This is Season 2. And it will be Season 2.2, I guess, when we come back.
2.2 when we come back. And all of our episodes will be available on Yesterday's Tea as well. So we're not losing our material. We're not getting rid of our material.
Nope.
They will all still say hi on history. So it will be kind of just a historical archive.
Yeah. It'll all be an archive. It'll all be there. So you can watch us from our very, very cringy beginnings for all time, and we will never be able to get too big for our britches, because there's a Halloween episode that the scariest part about it is how badly we did.
I hate that episode.
Oh, I really hate that episode. Oh my gosh, if I could take every minute of it back, I would.
Oh god, I'm so glad that was our shortest video too.
Oh my.
Dude, so I had such a great story written out, but the way I presented it was like, dude, that was the scariest part.
Oh, yeah.
Mine
was no better. Like, oh no, it's a bad episode. And then, you know, now we've gotten better about sound checking. The saddest thing is some of our very best episodes, when we went to go do the rewatch, they had no sound.
Oh god,
you guys missed all. And then when we would redo the episode,
we had
no spark.
Lost all excitement. We were devastated.
Yep, that happened with the Rousseau episode.
Oh god,
so
I
sad.
think another episode like right before that too.
Oh yeah,
it was one of the Louis episodes.
One of the Louis episodes. Yep, the first Sun King episode.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so devastating.
I think we've lost about 3 episodes.
No, I think it's been 4 or 5
total. 4 or 5 now.
Yeah, because we lost an episode in the garage.
Oh,
and then we lost, I think, the second episode we ever did, gone completely. Or was it the third?
Oh, and then one of our very, very, very first episodes when we were recording on one of the
cell phones. Yeah, that's when we got off the cell phones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was done. We went a little long, and the phone just, like, died mid-recording. Yeah. And then the recording disappeared. We never had it.
Yeah. God, that was so sad.
Oh, it was so sad.
So
okay.
sad.
So, but we have a great episode for you now, and we've done a sound check,
So everything should be good.
Everything should be good to go.
All right. So, over our last few episodes of the Enlightenment, we've sung the Enlightenment praises.
Yes, we have.
And
for good reason.
For great reasons. It is the foundation of our nation, along with many other governments around the world. So the Enlightenment has been so beneficial, but today...
It's the foundation of all modern democracy,
It really is. But today, we're going to kind of address the roles of women, as well as really the biggest elephant in the room with Enlightenment is slavery. They don't address it at all, and if they do, they pretty much justify it through scientific reasoning. So it's one of those where
this is the critiques and hypocrisies episode.
Yep,
but also we're going to cover some cool stuff.
Yeah, this is going to be a great episode. So in the reasoning, they've applied to the 3 estates. That's the foundation of the French monarchy. Just to kind of recap, the 3 estates were unjust. They violated the natural rights of man. And pretty much in that way, the nobility and clergy ultimately ruled the law and the gold of the land. And ultimately, it was abusive. And the 3rd estate, the poor, the bourgeoisie, the middle class, the doctors, the lawyers, they paid the highest taxes for the tariffs. And those tariffs that they paid for supported the lavish lifestyle of the clergy, who back then there was a lot of religious scandal of clergy having illegitimate children and war funds and blah blah blah. There was a lot of scandal of the upper estates, and the lower class starved, as well as experienced extreme unjust arrest and punishments. Yeah, kind of like what we're facing today.
Ooh. All right.
Thank you.
So, Enlightenment thinkers encouraged the individual to scrutinize and question for himself the ethical, moral, and intellectual foundations of society. And those ideas spread across Europe, they spread across North America, but in France they were very sharply focused, in fact, on the three estates, the clergy, the nobility, and as we've mentioned, literally everyone else, or slightly more than 97% of the French population, just so we're very clear. And this reminds me of the, early aughts movement, We Are the 99%.
Right.
It's 97%. So that third estate, from laborers to doctors, lawyers, craftsmen, sailors, soldiers, merchants,
pretty much everyone
else
was not clergy or born under the title of even minor nobility kind of suffered from the lower estate.
And remember that in the Sun King's court, the Sun King had all the nobility gathered at his court, and he was keeping them from building armies by forcing them to spend almost all of their money just to stay in the latest silks.
Yeah,
to have the most fashion
and grace.
Right. And so there's all kinds of incentive for these people to be corrupt financially, and they are corrupt financially.
Absolutely.
And everybody else is paying the price. And here's the thing. Multiple kings, including Louis XIV, actually made attempts to rectify this situation. They were aware, the kings were aware that corruption in their court was an issue.
Yeah.
But every time they moved to do anything about it,
they were stopped.
They were stopped by the nobility. And honestly, Necker got his position because he was willing to say, hey, by the way, your finance minister is embezzling.
Yeah.
So this was a consistent problem where even when it was addressed, it wasn't really addressed.
Right. So we'll actually end up seeing with the court of Louis XV and XVI how the Enlightenment finds its way into the royal palace and how it really, really takes effect under the throne of Louis XV. And now this is kind of speculation at this point, but I really think the reason why the Enlightenment really got fueled under 15, still working on a nickname for him. Haven't got there yet. But I think it was because of what is that term called for the court that takes over for the child who's too young? Because Louis was only 5 when he took throne.
Right, the, oh my.
The Regency.
Regency,
yeah,
yes,
the Regency. Yes. I think the Regency was far more corrupt at that time, a lot more embezzling, and I'm sure we'll find out when we get more into Louis's early life that we will actually see the corruption under the cardinal and under his mother, who was the regencies for him. Oh, wait, no, 15's mother was dead. I don't know who all was regency for him. It was Cardinal something and a couple other parliament members.
Cardinal Richelieu.
Was under 14.
No. 14 was Mazarin.
Oh, Richelieu was 13. Yeah.
I don't know what it was.
I don't remember
wait, 15 didn't...
He did have a cardinal for a little while until he was old enough to take throne himself, and that's when he got rid of his cardinal. I do know that.
Just like 14.
I do know that.
Okay.
But I really do think, because of how corrupt the cardinal was as his regency, that was really what fueled the peasant class, the bourgeoisie, to truly rise up with the Enlightenment. Because, the whispers had to begin much longer before 1715 when they say the Enlightenment truly began.
I mean, Mazarin, too, under 14, was incredibly corrupt. That's one of the reasons why Louis didn't replace him. Why replace one Italian cardinal who had been raking it in from the
for another
French,
one who's going to do the same thing,
and inviting all his Italian friends to the court to do the same.
Yeah.
So Louis just booted them, and he certainly wasn't going to bring in another one.
Right. I mean, that certainly makes sense.
So because I write too much, and then apparently sum up beautifully, I actually got all the way to there. Like, we just covered that.
Yep, we just talked about that part too. I guess the only thing I can really add before you eat that card.
I was almost to eat that card.
Okay.
To the Enlightenment thinkers, not only was such a system fundamentally immoral and corrupt, it was also completely irrational. So this is where reason comes in. They wind up saying, basically, this doesn't follow the laws of logic and science and reason and the natural right. So that is their base claim. Such a system, they say, violates natural law. And, of course, central to this unjust and irrational system lies the ancient tradition of hereditary privilege. So they really, in France, hereditary privilege is a big sticking point for these Enlightenment thinkers, as it is actually also in England. Logic can't justify such a system. And then I also have a...
Yes. Alright, so many of the rulers of the Enlightenment era, as we addressed in, 2-3 episodes ago? I don't entirely remember. We had talked about the disposition of the Holy Roman Emperor Joseph I, Queen Catherine the Great of Russia.
The enlightened despots. Yeah, that was a couple of episodes ago.
Definitely go check that out. But when we had talked about them, they had tried. They had mentioned trying to eliminate serfdom, trying to eliminate this, that, and the other thing.
Catherine the Great actually expanded serfdom. Joseph did try to ban it, but it didn't go well, right?
Yeah. But, what I'm ultimately trying to say is many of these leaders actually embraced it, even though they did want to keep their power. But they were always met with resistance, no matter what they tried to do. Either their own nobility or the clergy were always trying to stop them. And that's where, also at the same point, I do want to mention that a lot of these Enlightenment thinkers, such as Voltaire, such as the Condorcets that we're about to talk about, all themselves come from some sort of upper class.
Right. This is so important.
Most of them are also either minor nobility or very wealthy. They have their hands in the slave trade. They have their hands in the West Indies. They have their hands in the American sugar.
They're either making money directly or indirectly from this incredible system of privilege. And that's why by the way, when you get to live like that, of course you get to think great thoughts. Because you have nothing to do but sit at your desk all day and to write the deep thoughts of the universe. Yeah. This has always been one of the criticisms I have had of the philosophers, is because, yes, so many of them were writing from this place of incredible privilege.
And privilege.
They didn't even know it, really.
And then I do want to give the nobility credit at this point, though, the royalty and nobility.
Because this is also the case,
And the credit I'm giving specifically to the royalty with Catherine, with Joseph, and even sort of with Louis XVI. These people tried to embrace the Enlightenment, and they were also, at that point, beginning to question their own divine right to the throne. Now, were they willing to give it up? Hell no. Who would want to give up the privilege of life and luxury?
Right.
Who would I want a fucking $1 million. I know everybody would like $1 million in their bank account right now. That would be lovely.
There's this notion by the 17th century. Well, there's this understanding by the 17th century that man is but an animal.
Yeah.
And when you've got kings suffering from the debilitating medical issues that the kings of Europe suffered from, it is impossible not to then see that the king too is just a man, and reason really begins to take even the monarchs can see it. It's impossible to ignore at this point.
And that is exactly the point. Yeah. So because they start denying their divine appointment by God, they sort of they also start using the scientific reasoning to argue the only reason why they deserve to stay in power is actually because their lineage, their experience has created a point for them to have to stay in power.
Right.
You're not gonna know what to do if you take power, so I have to stay in power, is ultimately their reasoning of, oh, I'm not divinely appointed.
But I've been trained for this job.
Yeah. I am the only one who knows what to do.
I come from a family. And this makes sense. This makes sense in a system where from the fisherman to the butcher to the sailor to the lawyer,
all these traits are passed down, father to son, mother to daughter.
And it's becoming a problem because sons and daughters are often so very unlike their parents, as it turns out. Just because your dad is suited to something doesn't automatically mean that that's what you're suited to.
Right.
And in the early, and like this is the pre-industrial era, but it's just barely pre-industrial, right?
Yeah.
And so more and more it's becoming an issue.
By the time we reach the end of Louis XVI, we will be entering the beginning of the Industrial Revolution.
So all these things are collapsing on France at once, and I think it's very easy to blame the nobility, but the Enlightenment thinkers are the nobility. So yes, I guess blame them because but also I think were legit. They were not only arguing for themselves, insofar as these were white men arguing for white men.
Yeah.
They were still being remarkable because they did mean to include the dignity of the peasant.
Yeah.
As the noble. They saw the injustice in the criminality system.
They believed that all humans were equal, didn't matter what poverty level we were on.
Right, and not all humans,
I guess
but
not
they
poverty level,
but all white men, all white European men. At least they meant that.
Yeah.
And therein lies the problem, because they're excluding women in this moment, and they are explicitly using these weird pseudoscientific justifications. I mean, the stuff that they were writing at the time is kind of horrendous, while they pretend that the slave trade in both the Americas, remember this includes Native Americans who are getting paid into savages, this is including kidnapped people out of Africa, who they are also increasingly simply painting as not human at all. And they're using all these weird pseudoscientific
I actually looked into, like, as a side rabbit hole, some of these, like, pseudoscience reasoning, and it was kind of actually horrifying.
It is horrifying.
It is horrifying to actually see, like, the justification and reasoning for the African, Native American cultures, and South American cultures to be treated in such a way.
This is maybe a macabre sort of reason, but I remember specifically one of the things that got me interested in history was reading an old encyclopedia.
Oh, God.
That had one of the most insanely racist entries on both Native Americans and black people. It was unbelievable. I don't know. I was too young to remember what year the encyclopedia was. I had thought, oh, this is so neat. This is an old book, you know, fascination with old book. And then I'm reading it, and I'm so horrified by it that I thought, well, how could people have possibly thought this back in the day? And this was one of the reasons I got into history, was because I was so horrified that people could legitimately think something so
Yeah.
So obviously untrue, and yet the reasons why that happened, it turns out a lot of people also, just to be clear, many people did not think this, even in that time. There was tons of pushback.
Yeah.
In that time. But the Enlightenment thinkers justified it anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
Mostly because they were profiting off of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's to you again because...
So we got
we're not doing the
like,
cards today, apparently.
Yeah, we also kind of like jumped ahead. I wanted to add to like how we were discussing slavery, that it was a personal investment for most of them. Business economy, colonial development, like we had mentioned, the start of the industrial age. This was a calculated and deeply prejudiced movement. Women, as well as all non-Europeans, were believed to lack the capacity, lack the ability to reason the way white man could. Yep. And the capacity to reason was the ability, it was required to be able to self-govern. And ultimately nowadays we know that's just simply wrong. And during the height of the Atlantic slave trade, this created the wealth. And that is what caused the admitting that enslaved people had no rights. Because if by admitting they had the rights, that would crash the economy.
Completely.
So
it
yeah, ultimately it would just devastate the economy. The men, the white man, had the public sphere, which was reserved for men who were able to discuss politics, logic, vote. That was the public sphere. Now we had also the private sphere, which is where the saloons got their thing at. Or salons?
Right.
Salons, yeah. The salons got their going. And that was the woman. She was the emotion. She was the home. So she got to have all these lavish little parties and discuss her Enlightenment thought. Oh, and by the way, speaking of the women of Enlightenment, it is International Women's Day. So shout out to the ladies of the Enlightenment.
In particular, to the ladies of the Enlightenment. You are just going to do a back and forth here?
We've got Mary Wollstonecraft. We're going to discuss the lovely Sophia de Condorcet today.
There's shout out to Olympia de Gouges.
Oh gosh, and there were so many other women that
so many,
and
you won't hear their names. And in fact, I am so thrilled to bring you Sophia de Condorcet because this is a powerhouse of a woman. But yeah, so happy International Women's Day. Today we are going to discuss the women behind the Enlightenment, and there were many.
So, before we actually dive into the wonderful Sophia de Condorcet, I do want to say... I do want to say that the Enlightenment thinkers' specific role for women was to provide a stable domestic environment for their man to be able to go out and be citizens. And that would be to function in the public sphere. Business, logic, voting, and just acts of self-government. So, as we are about to dive into, do you want to take our lovely highlighted woman of the day first, or do you want me to deep dive into the man that
let's deep dive him first, but I do have a quick note before we do that. So, Jordan said it exactly so. The men who needed to go out there and be citizens absolutely depended on the women to provide this stable home environment. And that stable home environment also needed to be one in which peace and enlightened thought and logic could thrive, which means that these men were in fact depending on, whether they wanted to admit it or not, the intelligence and the emotional intelligence, but the management, in fact, of women, and the salons to which the likes of Adam Smith and Voltaire, they tried to, they worked to get invitations to the right salons. So the salons, which practically are the beating heart, they are literally the beating heart of the Enlightenment, maybe more than the pamphlets, more than the speeches, there's these salons, and those are run by women. And the guest speakers are decided on by women, and the whole layout, everything that's being provided here is managed and thought of by women who are even picking the topics. So they refuse to acknowledge the way that the women are valued, but the women were absolutely integral, particularly noble women, were integral to the success of the Enlightenment. It is their heart that is the, as we will see, the driving force. It's the empathy and the compassion. What empathy and compassion can be found in the Enlightenment is found with the women.
Yeah.
And it's a part of the story we don't tell. We're very excited to start bringing you parts of that story. Yeah. But first, let's go with one of the male champions of those women, the Maquis de Condorcet.
So, Maquis de Condorcet, his full name, this is a tongue twister mouthful.
Oh, it's a name.
Marie-Jean-Antoine Nicolas de Cariat Marquis de Condorcet. And I believe, if I remember correctly, when you were filling out this note card, you had mentioned to me that the Maquis de Condorcet was actually like a lord of like 10 different other titles behind his name or something like that. I'm exaggerating.
Was that him? No. That was a different Maquis that we will also discuss. No, it was the one we discussed last episode, actually.
Yeah. Okay, confusion. Sorry, we did take a little bit of a hiatus this month, too. So, Marquis de Condorcet was a French gentleman. I believe nobility, since he's a Marquis.
Yes, he is. Minor nobility, but yes.
Yes. His lifespan was between 1743 and 1794, and suffrage ultimately was inevitable, according to him. The glorious hypocrisies of the Enlightenment were not, however, unchallenged in their own time, which brings us to what he actually thought. And I guess I didn't fully read my note cards all the way on Marquis de Condorcet, so I'm going to actually jump back before his thought and give you a brief background on his education. He was a mathematician and was recognized as a prodigy. I almost said parody.
Oh, no.
That's why I had to double check. He was a prodigy. And he became a member of the French Academy of Science. And he was a very principled man. He firmly believed that human history was defined by a bent towards progress?
A bend towards
progress. Bend, sorry. And progress was driven by education, scientific knowledge, and social reforms, as we've discussed many a times. So
that's Condorcet's contribution.
Yeah. He applied reason far further than his peers, arguing for unrivaled public education, full civil and public rights for women. So not only do the women have to manage the home, but the women also get to be citizens as well. They have the right to go out and vote, to have that self-governance that is required to be in the public sphere. Because he does believe that women have reason, have logic, and we have to in order to manage our emotions in the house like we are expected. So Condorcet was a committed Republican in the early years of the Revolution. He supported the overthrowing of the monarchy, which, I mean, hey, they all did back then, really. Mm-hmm. And he backed the democratic reforms and served as a part of the revolutionary government for a time. Apparently in 1793, let me alliterate, not 1993, the Jacobean faction... Jacobin, I'm sorry. I always say that.
He was I'm going to pronounce this other word wrong. He was from the Girondin...
I know what you mean, but I can't say it right either yet.
And Robespierre was with the Jacobins.
Yeah.
So he ran afoul of the Jacobins pretty quick.
And yeah, ultimately because of the Robespierre being the infamous Robespierre, as he's labeled here, had consolidated power to draft a new constitution, and that is when Condorcet decided to openly criticize the new drafted constitution, arguing that the new constitution undermined the legal protections, concentrated too much power, and sacrificed the rights of the individual for the revolutionary virtue. They were really, like, straight up off with everyone's head because they didn't align with the same moral values of the revolution.
This is the revolution really shows two ideas clashing. I just can't. The more I look at it, the more I am. So you've got proto-fascism on one side with the Jacobins and Robespierre,
right,
and proto-socialism on the other side. And like from the get-go, you can see the prototype versions of both of those ideas have their birthplace right here in this moment, which is so cool.
So amazing. So because he decided to criticize the Declaration, the Constitution, so openly, the Jacobins were taking... Jacobins. The Jacobins. Were taking all criticism as automatically counter-revolutionary, and they were killing everyone. They were branded everyone as a traitor, and ultimately you were going to see the guillotine. Condorcet did end up avoiding the guillotine for a little while. He was forced to flee and go into hiding, knowing that his execution was eventually going to be inevitable. But in the months of hiding, he wrote his most powerful and hopeful piece, which is called A Sketch for the Historical Picture of the Human Mind. And in this, he argues history tends to be trends forward because humans learn to refine and reform. He writes that education is the engine of progress and insists that education must be universally open to all peoples. He writes that the enslaved are marginalized people and are not somehow lesser or lower on the evolutionary ladder as some of the Enlightenment thinkers have tried to label them.
So he is absolutely radical in his time.
Yeah.
And like I said, there was pushback to the idea at the time.
Yeah.
And he is one of the pushback voices here.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And rather than suffer from the exclusion under the unjust systems, he saw poverty, war, the unjustification was not inevitable features of the human contradiction, but problems of society that can be solved when society applies reason consistently, equally resisting the fear and authoritarianism. His book was published in 1795, after his capture and somewhat very suspicious death in prison. So he didn't actually ever meet the guillotine, but he was probably killed in prison, for sure.
Well, okay, so there's he died in prison. It is believed by some that his friends slipped him poison so that he would not meet the guillotine.
I mean, that's
This
fair.
is unclear, but something that was done to some of the more respected noblemen is sometimes their friends would find way to keep them from avoiding that fate. Somebody would look out for you, and that may have been what happened in his case. That's not proven. It's believed by some.
So, behind this wonderful man, we have his even more amazing wife.
Yeah, and this does bring us to the Sophia, to his wife, the Sophia. Sophia de Condorcet. There's that phrase behind every great man is a great woman. And if that phrase ever applied to any couple in all of history, it definitely applies to them. So this in no way diminishes what the Maquis de Condorcet himself believed and wrote. But if you happened to be wondering how it is that his book got published 2 years after he died, it's because his wife was brilliant. If he believed these things, it must have been at least in part because his wife was educated, brilliant, reasonable, and
she was the epitome of what a woman should be.
She was the epitome of what an Enlightenment woman could be in that time.
Yeah.
So she does come from a noble family herself. She's extremely wealthy, and she is remarkably well educated. For a woman of a time, for a woman of class of her time, I mean, on every level, she is extremely well educated.
Yeah.
And that is something that's interesting. So she brings that education to the marriage right away. I don't know if this made it into the cards because I found this out somewhat late, but this woman was so amazing. So when he is in hiding,
yeah,
she visits him all the time. They mutually decided to get a divorce. Not because they didn't love each other, but just so that she could hold on to the property if he got captured and killed, which of course did happen. And one of the reasons we have the story to tell is because she was so well respected. She herself gets arrested, but she gets out of prison, keeps the property. She lives through 7 regimes. We're going to cover this.
She's a legend, dude.
She's a total legend. And she doesn't get guillotined in part because she is very poised. She definitely carries herself like a noble woman at the time. She knows when to burn the documents. She knows when to keep her head down. She winds up holding salons that are under surveillance throughout all of this. And she dies of natural causes.
Oh, wow.
So,
all right, let's get into her. She sounds great.
Let's get into her a little bit. So, actually, I kind of did. I so fell in love with her. Now
you gotta figure out where you're at.
Right. Okay. So, shortly after her marriage to the Maquis de Condorcet in 1786, Sophia opens her first salon at the Hotel des Monnaies, or the Paris Mint. So, yes, the Hotel des Monnaies, the Hotel of Money, the Paris Mint. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, maybe I speak more French than I thought. Okay, never mind. It must be noted that we've already talked about what salons were.
Yeah.
And she starts off holding one of the most elite salons.
She's the party you want to be at.
She's the one that all the heavy hitters are clamoring to get into her salon. So we're talking Adam Smith. We're talking Thomas Paine. We're talking Voltaire himself. These people are trying to be at her salon. And I believe those people were. I looked it up. I tried to find verifiable evidence.
Yeah.
History as it's presented in the free, say like in the buff. Yeah. History in the free will make these claims sometimes without actually supporting them. And everywhere I looked, I saw it said that, her salons were attended by heavy hitters like Voltaire and Adam Smith. But when I looked to find out if there were actual records that confirmed this, poof, I could not find them. Ooh. That doesn't mean that they don't exist. That means I couldn't find them.
That means she burnt the paper when she burnt the paper.
Well, it could. Or it could mean that I was looking in the wrong place. It could be that information is not readily available on a search with the amount of time that I had. Sometimes I'm looking in the wrong place.
Fair.
It could mean that, like so many things, we tend to create this shorthand around history where we say something that's sort of a version of the truth, but it's not necessarily
could possibly be true.
Right. And I could not tell which was happening here. So I just want to go with that caveat. But there is no question that her salon was the place to be.
Yeah.
That's just me describing salons, choosing decorations and plates, but more importantly, speakers and ideas themselves. They're in charge of the music. Man, they've got the whole thing going on. This is way more than a party plan.
Yeah.
This is a party plan, but it is also, and much, much more importantly, an environment for an intellectual forum. So the entire party planning is bent around the idea that you are creating an intellectual forum for the best of the best to come and talk to each other about how to reshape society. And this is a whole new idea that society was thought up and therefore can be rethought. And here's Sophia de Condorcet during the time of the Ancien regime.
Yeah.
So, Louis the 16th, when he's still monarch, and Louis the 15th, yeah,
right,
in the time of Louis the 14th. So during the Ancien regime, and into, she loses her husband in the early days of the revolution. And she's Cesare. It says the likes of Cesare Beccaria. May have been, and again
may have been.
She hosted. Now this one seemed to come with a little. I couldn't super verify it, but the way it was said, and remember her place was under surveillance at the time.
Right, yeah.
So I believe this one for sure. Notable pamphleteer Olympia de Gouges. We had wanted to do an episode on Wollstonecraft and Olympia de Gouges.
That was going to be our next episode.
That was going to be our next episode.
It's going to be Women's History Month.
Given that we are taking a break, I'm not entirely certain that that's where we're going to pick up. So just in case we don't, a quick note about Olympia de Gouges. So she is brilliant, and one of the arguments that she makes, and I just hate this for her, she basically winds up saying, hey, if women can be executed for crimes, then they are citizens and therefore should have the same rights as men who can be executed for crimes.
Right.
And the revolution responded, of course, by executing her for daring to have that opinion.
Huh. I would like to pick up where we left off.
With Mary Wollstonecraft and
Olympia. Okay. Going with the
I hadn't gotten to talk to you about that. Yeah.
That is something I would like to do, is pick up where we left off as if nothing even happened. I just need a study break.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so we will be continuing with the ladies of the Enlightenment because they are the beating heart of the Enlightenment as we can see.
Yep.
And here is where I already mentioned this before, but I'm going to take an extra special minute. Because the other Enlightenment ladies, Wollstonecraft, Gouges, many of them were kind of flashy. Like they were very in your face. They were like, I'm a feminist, and how do you like that?
Right.
And it didn't go particularly well for most of them. But first, again, let's acknowledge Sophia de Condorcet comes from privilege. She managed to weasel her way into maintaining that privilege her entire life.
Yeah.
She didn't do it by being flashy. She did it by knowing how to color inside the lines and give at all times the appearance of the proper lady. Yeah. And, so for all the good and bad, thank you, patriarchy.
Right.
But let us take a moment to acknowledge that she survived 7 different political regimes.
Doesn't that mean she survived Napoleon too, then?
In fact, it does. The Ancien regime, the Revolution, the Terror, the Directory, the Consulate, the Napoleonic Empire, and the Bourbon Restoration.
No way! She survived the Restoration? I'm like, what? That was losers.
She passed away. She passed away in 1822 at the age of 58.
No way.
From natural causes.
Jesus Christ. That's dope. I can't believe she survived all the way through the Napoleonic Wars and into the Bourbon Restoration. Which, that is so funny in itself, because to this day now, because of the Bourbon Restoration, any heir of the Bourbon line is never allowed to have political power at all in France.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hilarious. That is amazing.
So her legacy lives on in her writings. Now, history does her a big disservice, and it does it from the moment of her obituary. I found this out.
Yeah.
So she dies, and her work is immediately portrayed from the moment of her obituary as a loving dedication to her husband, to which she remained devoted for the rest of her days. And so she's not given credit. It's all attributed in the beginning
to him. Which, I mean, makes sense.
He gets all the credit.
Sphere.
He gets all the credit. Even though he dies in the early days of the terror.
Divorced.
And they divorced.
She did all of that work in his
Which,
memory.
by the way, I love this because in her obituary, she isn't remembered as a divorcee, which
She's
would
a
have
widow.
been a stain, right? A divorcee is a
stain back then. That was
that's a big social stain. But that's not how she's remembered. She's remembered as a widow.
Oh,
so they're rewriting whatever is convenient for them in the moment, and it's weird because she's a person of principle, but you can kind of see how it suits the people of the time to kind of write the history in whatever way suits their purposes. And so they want to admire. She was a respected lady. She gets through all of this. She is respected at the end of her days, and so she's not remembered as a divorcee. She's remembered as a widow. And I found that kind of weirdly fascinating.
It's funny because in that time period, there was a quote that got famous. I'm actually pretty positive it was Napoleon himself who said it. He who wins the war writes history, or something like that.
Yeah,
and
which goes down
the golden rule. He who has the gold writes the rule. And to see that is kind of her portrayal, that is really kind of cool.
It is an interesting thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So first, she translates Adam Smith's The Theory of Moral Sentiments. Now she translates it from the English to the French.
Oh wow!
But she doesn't just translate it; she adds extensive commentary in the translations, and that commentary are called the Letters of Sympathy, I believe. Hold on. Let me get that right. Letters on Sympathy and Morality.
Huh.
So she expands. Now, Adam Smith kind of writes on this idea that morality is dictated by our capacity for compassion.
Yeah.
But he doesn't, he's a man. So, no, one of the things that Sophia de Condorcet does as she translates this is she really expands. She really deepens
his
thoughts on this, on the idea that sympathy is the basis of ethics, and she explores the relationship between reason and compassion. Enlightenment debates leaned heavily towards, cold rationalization. There is a coldness in logic. It's a zero-sum game a lot of the time.
Right.
And she's saying, look, it can't really be reason
Yeah.
if there's no compassion as the basis for that ethics. How is it ethics if there's no... How is it justice without that element of mercy and compassion?
Right.
The ability to empathize and sympathize with another being.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We're talking in a time here before Freud.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is really without these people, without people like Sophia de Condorcet.
We wouldn't
No
have
Freud.
No
Freud.
That's amazing. I was actually sitting here like, who does she remind me of? Freud. Yeah.
She's also a staunch feminist. She supported the views of Mary Wollstonecraft. I didn't know that she would have known about her. That kind of came as a surprise to me. I was like, yes!
Sense that they would know of each other if they never met. But
well,
at the same time, they'd be in the same circles.
They would not have been in the same circles because Mary Wollstonecraft grew up in relative poverty.
Oh.
She never really escapes that poverty. She's in England, and they're not in the same circles at all.
Oh,
Sophia de Condorcet is breathing very rarefied air. Wollstonecraft struggles every minute of her life. And yet the parallels are interesting because Wollstonecraft is taking, and we're going to cover this in Wollstonecraft, because she's taking the French documents such as the rights of man and the citizen and translating them into English from the French, and Sophia's
taking the English.
So this is interesting.
That's so cool.
That is so cool. And it is Sophia, of course, who published her husband's work. That is how 2 years after he dies. I didn't. In fact, do you know how we found? This. Yeah, this is how we found Sophia de Condorcet. I thought to myself, how did his book get published 2 years after he died? It's not like his executioners were all gung-ho to, like, post ad hoc publish the works of people that they'd beheaded. So, like, what was that? And that is the only reason I found this amazing woman, is because I wanted to know how his book got published.
When I did the initial research before you did your layer, I mean, I had kind of the initial question, but I had decided to skip that rabbit hole altogether because we had discussed trying to shorten our episodes.
Trying to shorten the episodes. We were trying to stay focused.
We were talking about shortening the episodes, and we hadn't actually come up with this new system of me doing some research, then you doing what research off of my notes, and then back and forth for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So, I skipped that part, so I'm so glad you actually went down this rabbit hole for us.
I have too.
Yeah.
So, she smuggled manuscripts. She did all the things that she needed to do to survive it all, and she published amazing works. History forgot her for a moment, but good news is modern historians who are not as misogynistic as historians and obituary writers of the past have gone back and looked at her legacy, and she is even more influential than her husband in some significant ways. And so happy Women's History Month
and happy International Women's History Day. We will see you again in about
early June, right? Well, didn't you say end of May,
End of May, early June. We will be back with, again, the Women of the Enlightenment. We look forward for you to coming back to season 2.2.
And yes, we will send a notification out on this channel giving you the link to our new the new email, the new channel. We'll get all that out to you.
This channel will stay up for a little while.
If you are not one of our personal friends and you want to make absolutely certain that you do not miss the switch over, and you have no other way, like a lot of the people who watch this channel are our Facebook friends, so they can DM us, of course. But if you are not one of those people, if you are watching from elsewhere and you don't know us personally, and you want to make absolutely sure you get the link, please drop a comment below on this video. Just let us know, and we will make absolutely sure to send you the new links specifically. Thank you so much for your time today, and
we appreciate you watching.
We appreciate you watching. We will see you back in June, probably.
Bye.
Live long and prosper.